All right, let's move on. Because who would have thought in the offseason, really for the last 10 off seasons, who would have thought that there would be a story bigger than Texas beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa? Granted, we found it. Like I said, more people watched Colorado beat Nebraska than watched Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. But here we are. Texas beating Bama on the road. I told you all the numbers, and this is what really gave me pause. And I'll be honest. So, like, I have a guy, he's a producer on this show, and then he's like my brain. I don't say anything to you, whether it's on a game or this show, that I haven't talked with Steve about. Steve and I in the summer, talking about the season, made a pact. Because we both, in July, we're both like, hey, Texas is really good. And we were both like, no, we can't do it. We can't do it. We can't do this again. This is a trap. This feels like a trap. You know, remember last year when I was giving those picks and I would be like, this feels like a trap. So when like your wife just doesn't give you anything other than like, do you like this shirt on me? And you're like, I don't know what the answer is, right? We didn't want to get, Steve and I did not want to get sucked back into Texas. So we made a pact. We're not talking about Texas until they do something. Well, guess what? Texas, you just did something. You just did something that basically nobody does. In fact, the only team that has in the last 54 games in Tuscaloosa is the Joe Burrow LSU Tigers, who went on to win the national championship. And that's beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. There's so much to get into in this game, but I'm going to start with this. I have thought Texas is really good since the summer. Didn't want to talk about it. Really didn't. Why? Because they constantly play to the level of their competition. And candidly, we've seen that both of the games this season in their sloppy and sluggish performance against Rice, in particular on the offensive line, and then their incredible performance on the road against Alabama. Everyone's going to wonder, like, is Texas back? We've got to stop with that because back is so long ago. They were great in 2005. They were great in 2008 and 9. Okay. And they were winning 10 ball games, every single year. Like, good on them. There's awesome. It's a great program. They're so far removed from that. So many coaches removed from that. This whole slogan and question of is Texas back has hampered and hindered this program for years. For years. They've had this standard, and they've been trying to skip steps of how to build a program for so many years rather than just doing it right. Okay, that being said, Texas is an elite team this year. That's the question we should ask ourselves every year. Not is Texas back? Is Texas elite this year? Yes, they're elite this year. That's why I put them at, what did I put them? 3 in my rankings? I know our guys have our rankings. Yeah, they're up 3. Boom. Texas. Couldn't really put them over UGA. Thought about putting them over Michigan. I really did. Probably should have. But I didn't. Texas at number 3, Florida State 4, Ohio State 5, Penn State 6, USC 7. Don't like that ranking by me. If I was shading me, I would shade me on the USC ranking. Then I've got Washington 8, Bama 9, Utah 10. Okay, let's get into this. We are officially allowed to start talking about Texas as a college football playoff, not only contender, but favorite to get into that spot. At this point, their path to the playoff, it's pretty easy. As much as you want to say that, in particular in the Big 12, when you always get a lot of tight games. If I look at Georgia and Texas, Those are the two paths that I would consider the easiest of all of those teams in the top 10. Now Bama's got a loss. They still have to play Ole Miss and LSU and then possibly Georgia in the SEC championship game. Utah's got to go through the Pac-12. USC's got to go through the Pac-12. Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State all have to play each other, and Florida State still has to play Clemson. So maybe it's like Georgia, Texas, and Florida State are probably the three easiest paths to the playoff here in the last year of the 4-team playoff. That's how good Texas was. Let's get into the game now. The reason that this is not just like Ole Miss beating Alabama in a one-off or Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel beating them in a one-off, it's because it wasn't just like some crazy play or a lot of turnovers, even though they got turnovers. This was a team that was just better than Alabama. They were just better. They win by 10 in Tuscaloosa, and candidly, it could have been more. They didn't execute inside the 10-yard line a couple of times, or else it could have been more. It was real because of what happened in the second half. And what happened in the second half is what gives me belief that Texas not only can, but probably will go to the college football playoff. And that is the fact that they owned the line of scrimmage against Alabama in Tuscaloosa in the second half. That wasn't a fluke. That was not a fluke. Both sides of the ball, late in the game, Alabama was getting it handed to them by Texas. Let's walk through it. Okay, Texas D-line, 14 quarterback pressures, 5 sacks on Milroe. 5. They won that battle completely. Okay? Texas, in the last 7 minutes of the game, didn't leave the field with their offense, ended the game on the field. They take the field with 7:14 left. It's a 10-point game, 2 possessions. In my mind, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Alabama's thinking about getting the ball back they have 3 timeouts left. If they can get the ball back with 5 minutes, that means you stop them. If you go 3 and out right there, if you're Texas, you're going to punt the ball away and give the ball to Alabama in a 10-point game. And they're going to have 3 timeouts and about 5:05, 5:10 left in the game. You can do that. You can do that. You can get 2 possessions out of 5 minutes. What did Texas do with 7:14 left? Steve Sarkisian didn't get cute with a trick play to find a first down. They handed the ball off 3 straight times and got a first down. Bam, 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 first down. That's when I was like, oh, okay. This is different. This is very different. On the subsequent series, now there's 5 minutes to go, and Alabama begins to do what? Use their timeouts. Texas then still gets a first down. And on the crucial play of the game, it's 3rd down. Bama's got to have it. They're out of timeouts. This is it. Texas hands the ball off again. And he goes right up the middle for a first down. The offensive line for Texas rolled out there and handled business. Their running game in the second half was way better. Their ability to protect the passer was far superior to what Alabama's was. Quinn Ewers had time on all those deep shots to get the ball down the field. Worthy caught a big deep shot. This was a team that was just flat better all around than Alabama. And that's what gives me belief that this was not a fluke, okay? They probably should have won last year, definitely handled them this year. And now, if you're Texas, you better hold a high standard for yourself because it's real now. Now it's like this, it's real at Texas finally. It's not, is Texas back? It's more, is Texas elite and is it real? Yeah, it's real. This is real. This is a team. I can't believe I'm saying this. This is a team that can play for a national championship. Look at the talent on that team. If you looked at the talent that Texas has compared to the rest of the Big 12, it's like not even close. It's not even close. They should win their conference and they should be in the college football playoff with a chance to compete for a national championship. That's how good this team is. And that's what Saturday proved. They're number 4 in the country right now. I've got them 3. That's the highest they've been ranked, by the way, since they played for a national championship back in 2009. They just controlled the line of scrimmage. Bama didn't have a real shot. I thought Bama was lucky that they were in the game to a large extent, because in particular in the second quarter, Texas was not capitalizing on a bunch of opportunities, and it was only 13-9 at one point, and then all of a sudden Alabama gets a score, and it's 16-13, and then it was just like boom, boom, boom. Texas kind of took control of the game. That leads us to the question about Alabama suffering their first double-digit home loss of the Saban era. I can just imagine right now. You guys remember what I did on Colin Cowherd a few years ago? It was after one of those Ole Miss losses. And I went on Colin Cowherd, and I was like, Alabama's got a Nick Saban problem. It was the dumbest thing I've said in my career. I hope you're if you're listening to this, I hope you're seeing, or excuse me, not seeing, hearing the regret in my voice over that comment. If you're watching, you know that I had to put my hat backwards, because it's just you got to face the adversity. That was the adversity of my career, was the dumbest take of my career. I will not repeat it. Period. Alabama is not going anywhere. Period. Okay? Those of you that want to bury Alabama, let's be very honest. If you look at a team like Clemson and the way that they struggled with Duke on the road, and what they looked like, and what Alabama looked like against an elite Texas team, then we need to be honest with ourselves and say, those are two different things. Those teams 5 years ago, they were the preeminent programs in the country. Those who we were constantly asking ourselves, are we ever going to have a national championship game that's not Bama Clemson? Oh, Bama Clemson fatigue, this or that. These two programs are not on the same trajectory. Clemson's trajectory is headed down, period. Alabama may be flat, but they're not going anywhere. Okay? Let's take this and be real honest with ourselves for a moment. How many teams could actually do what Texas did to Alabama even this year? And there's not many. What Texas did is they owned the line of scrimmage, and then they forced Bama to play a game that they were going to be completely, I don't want to say unprepared, uncomfortable with playing. With Jalen Milroe as their starting quarterback, they need to play with the lead. This is no longer the Bryce Young and Mac Jones and Tua and Jalen Hurts. They've had an elite quarterback for a long time. They don't have that anymore. So they have to go back to the drawing board in terms of the style of game that they're not only comfortable playing, but the style of game that they have to play in order to win. They need to have the lead. Okay? The first quarter is vital. The opening series, vital. The fact that they've got to hold on to the football early in games, because if they can play from the lead, then they can throw the ball when they want to, not when they have to. Because you saw exactly what happens when they had to throw the ball when they had to. They couldn't protect Milroe, trying to develop some of those offensive linemen. And Milroe is not a guy that's just going to drop back and control the game from the pocket. He stared down a couple of receivers. He turned the ball over. And quite frankly, that's not a game that he's best suited to play. He's best suited when he is in a two-dimensional offense that can run, throw, use RPOs, use his legs as a weapon. That's where Alabama is going to be good. So you have to ask yourself, how many teams can actually put Alabama into that box? All right, into that locker. Who can stuff Alabama into a locker? Not many. I would have said maybe LSU, maybe. But after what we saw against Florida State, I don't even know if they can. So let's not, the sky is not falling for Alabama. They still have the number one roster in college football as it according to 24/7 Talent. The composite, they're the best roster in college football. This is going to continue. They just had the number one class. They're going to continue to recruit at that level. Here's the composite. You can see it on YouTube. Alabama is 1, Georgia is 2, Ohio State is 3, Texas A&M is 4, Clemson is 5. Those two definitely going in the wrong direction. Texas might be one of the best teams in the country, and they are unique in the sense that they were good enough on the line of scrimmage to make Bama uncomfortable. I just don't see the teams on Bama's schedule that's going to be able to replicate that game plan that Texas had this weekend in Tuscaloosa. I will say this. They do. I've been saying since the offseason, I'm concerned about Alabama at quarterback. We all should have seen and read, kind of between the lines when they brought in Buckner after spring. And this is my post-spring podcast. I remember saying, this is not a good sign. When Nick Saban brought in a transfer and that transfer had a close relationship with the new OC, that means that guy thought that it was a real competition. So Buckner comes in for a real competition. Why? Because Milroe didn't look great in spring ball. That's the only reason he was there. And now you're seeing that play out on the field. So they do have a quarterback issue, but in this era of transfer portal and recruiting like Alabama can recruit, you really think that they can't fix this in the blink of an eye? I just got done telling you that Deion Sanders turned a 1-11 team that lost by an average of infinity, and now they're 2-0 and ranked 18th in the country. You really think Nick Saban can't fix this in a matter of a blink of an eye? Of course he can, and he probably will. So is Bama trending down? No. Are they done? No. And anybody that suggests that out there doesn't know what they're talking about. I won't repeat it. I will not repeat that error.